All right. Tommy Breedlove, thank you for joining the Every Breath Counts podcast. How you doing today, brother?
Ryan, I am grateful and humbled to be here, man. I've enjoyed our pre-conversation. We lived in the same area for a long time. I'm ready to rock, and let's hope we're net givers today, my friend.
Yes. You wrote a book called Legendary, and it helps others become legendary in their lives. And I'm going to use your words here. But what was the pivotal moment you realized you were not living a legendary life? And was that a hell yes or a no moment?
It was certainly not a hell yes moment because it ended up in a ditch looking up at the blue sky. On the outside, man, I looked like I had it all going on. Each day I would show up in the tailored suits, the fancy cufflinks, shiny watch, corner office, blah, 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 had the money, title, prestige. And I came from very humble beginnings. And so I thought when I was, worked my butt off to get those things that I would be happy, fulfilled, and life would be complete. And when that didn't happen, I turned to all the darkness in the world, man. And so, when this doesn't fill us up, we turn to other things to fill us up. And sometimes those things can be very destructive, and they were. And so I woke up in a ditch and I'd almost lost my life. Certainly my wife and I were, our marriage was on life support, clearly. And almost lost my firm, all in, just continuing to spiral down into darkness and just trying to be significant in this world, trying to be powerful, trying to be seen, heard, and loved, truthfully. So it definitely wasn't a hell yes moment. It was a no moment, but it was a moment. It was the second time in my life that I had a big, I don't know if I'm getting a third moment, kind of aha moment. I don't know if it was the little boy who had a tough time growing up. I don't know if it was a God moment. I just don't know if I had or all three. Right. And so I literally decided to pick myself up, dust myself off, quit trying to impress others, be me, which was hard, right? Because I was always the tough guy, the important guy, the life of the party guy, the guy that buys all the drinks, that kind of guy. But it was never me. I just wanted to be. And so it was a moment of not goodness. Some would call it a rock bottom. Others would call it a spiritual awakening. It's somewhere in between those two things, I think. And so I just decided to make me my full-time job. And that was a pivotal moment in my life to start living on the goodness, the light, the love, the giving side of life, as opposed to the fear, taking, insecurity, and anger side of life. And it wasn't an easy transition, but it was a beautiful transition. So the transition itself was a hell yes. We can say that.
So you said you were laying in a ditch, though. I mean, I'm curious now. Was this metaphorical ditch or was this a literal ditch that you were laying?
It was literal, man. Literal.
What happened?
So I don't 100% know, and it's been a long time now, but it's been almost 11 years. But it was 3 days of, think Wolf of Wall Street, Mad Men type lifestyle, going out and trying to just be powerful. And for me, it was a spiral over 3 years. It wasn't one particular thing that I was struggling with. What I was struggling with was insecurity, fear. And it was just the way I remember it, it was a couple of days of just pure chaotic debauchery and everything else, and woke up literally half dressed in a ditch looking at the blue sky. I didn't know where my car was. And I was pretty high up in a big financial consulting, public accounting, and M&A firm, and scared, alone, wondering if I was even alive. When you wake up and you have that, where am I? Who am I? And I'm like, this ain't good. And so it was a literal ditch. It wasn't a metaphorical ditch. And I said, enough is enough, and decided to turn it all around in that moment, no matter what it took. And here I am 11 years later in this journey, my friends.
So what was the self-talk, or how did you go from the self-realization that things needed to change to the actions of changing your life?
So going back to my wife and I, we were in marriage counseling and we were working with this psychologist counselor who was actually very good at his job. But I'm not kidding, every counselor that we saw over our first 10 or 12 years of marriage After the first, second, or third session to help our marriage, quote, they would always say the same thing. Tommy, why don't you come alone next time? And, at first I thought they were going to tell me, well, she's clearly the problem, man. But that wasn't the case. They saw the closedness. They saw the darkness. They saw the anger. But, I just didn't feel. I wouldn't show emotion. I wouldn't show any kind of weakness. I wouldn't show any love. I couldn't. And it was almost, they knew, and this was weird. I didn't figure out this till later. I couldn't receive love because way down in there, brother, I thought I was unlovable. And that's pretty hard for a 6'2" financial consulting alpha male to say, right? Yeah. Not anymore. I'm not that anymore. But with that being said, I'll never forget when I was laying. I don't remember if it was when I was driving home, and I don't even remember how I got home. And so that was kind of strange.
Wow.
But somewhere in those next few hours, I remember the counselor saying, Tommy, there's a place in Tennessee. Here's the action. There's a place in Tennessee called On-Site Workshops that can do more for you in 7 days than I can do in 10 years. And it just kept ringing and ringing and ringing in my ears. And I called him and I said, I don't know what you've got to do to get me in that next 7-day program. It's called a Living Centered program. It's about discovering who you are. It's about letting you know you're not alone, about addressing the past and why we act this way, and about moving forward with actionable steps to help us gain courage, self-confidence, love for ourselves, and to just be productive, better members of society. And he got me in, and that was my first action into this whole transformation journey. And they spend 4 days cutting you open in a one-on-one small group and a little bit larger group setting, and then 3 days put you back together. But what I loved about it is they gave me a boatload of tools when I left, and I was drinking from a fire hose. So I did them all. So that was my first step.
No, and you always hear about people who have this life-changing experience, and it sounds like you had something that really you couldn't avoid. You had to make a change in your life. And we always hope that others can make similar changes without going through that trauma. That's always a hope for me, is like, I want to help other people realize you don't have to go through something so traumatic that it's going to scar you for life. I want you to make these small changes now so that you can avoid that and live the legendary life that you're talking about right from the beginning. And one of the reoccurring themes of your book was starting small to dream big. And I think that kind of gets to the core of what I'm talking about is don't go through that trauma. Take the actions that you have laid out in this book and start small. Take some of these actions. So where should someone else start living the legendary life?
Yeah, you and I have the same dream, by the way. And I'm going to tell you exactly where they need to start here in a second. I don't want integrity breaches or kids walking away from you for life, or divorces, or loss of jobs, or even worse, addictions, depression. So, it runs the gamut, right? And so the first thing I would tell everybody listening, and then I'm going to get to the actions, is whatever you're dealing with. It could be fear. It could be worry. It could be not as financially successful as you want to be. It could be a bad marriage. It could be scared, alone, the not good enough. There's a bunch of, you could be unhappy. You could be unfulfilled. You could be lost. Like, why am I here? No matter what issue you're dealing with on that side of the spectrum, the most important thing is to know that you're not alone. If you're dealing with it, millions are dealing with it. And so sometimes I think we're scared to talk about it. We think people will judge us. We think we're alone. We're the only one with these deep, dark desires or fears or insecurities, or maybe have habits that we wish we didn't have. But the truth is that's nonsense. And whatever the media and social media say is nonsense. Millions of people are struggling with the same issue. So that's the first thing I would say. So let's say you just got to start small and think big. Is it you're struggling with happiness? Is it you're struggling with financial success? Don't have the job you don't want, don't have the partner you don't want, or seeking a partner, whatever it is, we need to go find the nearest mirror that is the problem and the solution. So that's the good news. It is the problem and the solution. And so in order to make small changes in our life, the easiest thing we do is take one negative away. And I'll give you some examples. That's the easy, quick fix. And so if you're binging on Netflix 8 hours a day and you don't like the career you're in, maybe take the Netflix down to 1 hour a day and do something to better yourself, whether it's a skill, trade, a lesson, a book, to get better in that particular. We've got to take the negative way. If you're drinking 19 beers a day, take it down to 1, or stop drinking, whatever your thing is. Is it a negative person in your life? Is it negative friends in your life? Is it negative self-talk? Because we all have a version of that. The not good enoughs, the I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I'll never be there. Is it that you're a victim? And by the way, our news, both sides, left, right, center, they're promoting that you're a victim. I promise you're not. You are the master of your own destiny. So whatever that negative is, what's the one thing you need to remove from your life? And I guarantee you, both of the people on this video right now or this podcast, we know what that one thing is. What's the one thing in your life that you need to take away or limit? And by doing that, you will increase whatever it is you're seeking by about 10x. So remove one negative thing, and now you've got to add some what I call goodness. And here's what's not goodness. I'm just going to call out what's not goodness. Social media is not goodness. 24-hour news is the exact opposite of goodness. Binging Netflix and Amazon because what we're watching there is also somewhat poisonous. It's war, it's division, it's sex, it's negativity, it's whatever social issues out there. That's not goodness. So we've got to take some of those things away and add some good stuff. So here's some of the good stuff. Taking a walk in nature, learning a new craft, reading a book, noticing the small things all around you, gratitude, noticing that you have health, that you have breath in your lungs, that there's a beautiful tree out there, that you're listening to a podcast. Listen to a podcast, read a book, call a positive friend, go have coffee with a positive friend, take a walk with a positive friend, meditate, pray, read a book. I mean, go to the theater, watch a positive documentary. But surround yourself with what I call nutrition and goodness, because we're inundated. We live in a casino between our phones and the news, and it's dings and buzzes and clicks and rings and texts. And then you add just real life pressure. So life is hard enough alone with sickness and life and political issues and social issues. We've got to start working on what I call the inner game. And you start small. It could be a gratitude practice. It could be a morning meditation. It could be a morning walk, getting in nature. But we take one negative out, and constantly and every day, it could be 10 minutes. I recommend at least 30 minutes to an hour working on the inner game and outer game, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. Because we got to get ourselves strong to be strong for others. We got to love ourselves to love others. We got to respect ourselves to respect and get respect. And so take a negative out and add some positives in. And if you do that over a month, I'm telling you, the way you feel, your energy, the way you look at yourself, the energy, it's an energy flow on friendships. It's an energy flow in business. Money's an energy flow. You just start feeling and vibrating differently. And over time, you'll look up and you're like, man, I'm not angry anymore. Man, I feel grateful. I'm just glad I'm here. You know, there's just changes happen over time. But here's the key: action and work. You've got to do the work in order to seek the change that you want to see. And I'll stop talking.
No, that's fine. So I love the idea of gratitude and building upon things that are good in your life. And I think the important thing that you mentioned is that taking something away that is not benefiting you, so if someone is looking at their life, they're self-reflecting, they've looked in the mirror and they say, I don't have anything to be grateful for, because I feel like there's people in this world who have that thought. I have nothing to be grateful for. I have no gratitude. Nothing is good in my life. And to an extent, it may be the way you're living that puts you in that mindset, but taking something out that is not benefiting you, I feel like leaves a void. And now you're able to fill that void with something that you can be grateful for. And I always say, success needs to be built upon itself. And all you have to do is do one thing successfully to start that domino effect of gratitude. And I usually start with getting up in the morning. Set your alarm for earlier than you want to get up. If you get up at 6, set it for 5. All you have to do, the one strategy you can use to build success in your life, is set your alarm clock before you want to get up and get up when it goes off. And now you have started your day with gratitude that you have won. You have beat something to start your day. And I think it's such a powerful, powerful strategy. What other strategies do you have for building gratitude?
I'll tell you one that I just learned. And again, I just think people need to hear this depending on where they are in life. If you have I've seen it in my practice, in my masterminds, my executive coaching, my retreats. I've seen men and women who struggle with being grateful. So the key is that's okay. Anything that was wired into us, you didn't come out of the womb that way. You didn't come out ungrateful or angry or judgmental or scared or worried. You just didn't come out that way. That was all programmed into you. We can program it out of you. It just takes some time and energy and effort. So that's what I want them to hear. So don't think you're a freak. I hate that word, but some people think we're just this weird thing out there, and that's not true. I read something recently, a tactic. This is not mine. I forget. It was an admiral. It's a very short book, but the point of the book, he was a Navy SEAL commander, but he was, it said, make my bed. And I love when you get up and you have that one, you get up a little earlier. That's an accomplishment. You have done something that day. You have accomplished something. You're not going to go to bed at night. If you get up an hour earlier, 30 minutes earlier, you have accomplished something. So your day is not wasted. If you take the second step of making your bed, when you go to bed at night, you'll feel a lot better. It feels good to come back to a made bed, but it's also accomplishedness, it's cleanliness, it's organization, and it's productive. That's not mine, but I just read that and I'm like, that's genius. And I've been making my bed a long time. So I'm glad I got some affirmation on that. But here's the thing on gratitude. If you can make it, don't just make it about you and make it not about you. There is something that you start with thanking yourself. Maybe it's you just got up today and you got out of bed. Thank you, Tommy, for getting out of bed. Thank you, Ryan, for getting up 5 minutes early. Thank you, Ryan, for making your bed. Thank you, Ryan, for brushing your teeth. Say it to yourself. That's self-love. That's rewiring from I'm not good enough, I stink, I'm unsuccessful, I'm not happy, no one loves me, to, hey, I did something really good today. I brushed my teeth. I had breakfast. Oh, and by the way, thank you for the breakfast. There's millions of people that don't have breakfast. And here's the thing is, God willing, you have some ounce of health in you, because so many people, there's people in the hospital, they're dying to have the opportunity that we have right now just to breathe.
Yes. Yeah.
And so make it about you first, because that's beginning the unwiring. We got to start loving and thanking ourselves, even for I know it sounds so almost too simple, but when we say, thank you, Tommy, or I'm so grateful, Tommy, that you actually walked down the road and back. I'm so thankful you called a friend. There's so many things that you do well, whether you see it or not. There's so many talents you've got. There's so many things you've got in the world. There's so many things about you physically, whether you see it or don't see it, and especially inside, because inside we're all the same. And so if Ryan and I can figure out how to be thankful for stuff on the inside, but maybe you like birds, maybe walk outside and see the beautiful birds and just thank them. The heart beating, the breath in your lungs, the fact that you have food, shoes. How do we take that for granted? Hell, think the thing I hate the worst. Thank your phone. I mean, think about how much we rely on our phones for everything we do now. Think that damn thing. I can't stand the things, but I live on them, so I'm owning that. Yeah. But I would start by thanking yourself for something, even the most simple, putting on your clothes. Hey, that's a big step. Some people are so down they can't put on their clothes that day. Or just thinking the biggest thing that you can do is when you open your eyes, just say thank you for whatever it is you believe in, because you get one more day. You just get one more day. So make it external and internal, but there is something. You just got to start wiring it and look for it. Even if you have to force it, look for it. It is there. Or here's one more suggestion. If you have one person in your life, and maybe you don't, but hopefully you have one that loves you and believes in you, ask them, so what is it something I'm good at? And thank yourself for that.
I love that. I think that's a phenomenal strategy, is to include others in this. And I'm interested in the way you're describing this, because the way you're describing it is that you should be saying it out loud. And, you're saying it, hey, Tommy, in the third person, but it's out loud. It's physical. It's an action. But one of the other actions that you talk about in the book, and it's another reoccurring theme, is actually eliminating words from your
Mm.
vocabulary. And I found this to be really interesting as well, because some words, they affect your mindset and they're almost poison to the way your mentality is when you're saying them. So what are some of these words that you have eliminated from your vocabulary that have been impactful in your life?
We're adding words to this. So I'll give you some of the ones in the book and I'll tell you why too. Should. We should ourselves to death and others should us to death. And should is a shaming word. It's like, I know what's better for you, or I should do this. It's where you're shaming yourself. And guilt is I've done something wrong. I've punched Ryan. That's out of my integrity zone. I've done something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. I am bad. And when we should ourselves to death, or if you say, Ryan, you should do this, well, that's automatically assuming I know what's best for you, and we just met. And so,
Yes.
Should comes from bad preachers and rabbis. There's good ones too, but it comes from social messaging. It comes from parents. It's unconscious. It's an unconscious word. We're not doing it maliciously. And we think we're helping, but it actually is a shaming word. And be careful about the shoulds that you tell yourself. Oh, well, I should be doing this. Well, should you? You see that? You see the shoulds? And so try. And I'm going to use the great words of Yoda: do or do not. There is no try. When someone or you tell yourself you're going to try to do something, that means you're not prioritizing it and you're not going to do it. And by the way, when you tell your kids that you're going to try to do something, that's just telling them that you're not going to do it. And so just say you're going to do it or not do it. So there is try or do. And so try is a word that I can't stand. I hate the word busy. To me, when we say we're busy, that means something or someone else or a whole bunch of some things and someone's are in control of our time. And at the end of the day, even when you work for someone else, that's just simply not true. We are the masters of our time. There is no person on earth who has more time than we do or less. And so that's another word. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. So that's another word that I really don't like, because everything is possible. I mean, think about less than 200 years ago. I mean, we were riding horses and, really tribal warfare, for lack of a better word. And now we're thinking about taking people in outer space and colonizing things. And so really nothing at the end of the day is in play. And who knows where science is going to go. One that's not in the book, that it's just really gotten to me lately. And so whenever we write the next book, it's deserve. You can just taste that word, deserve. There's an entitlement there, there's, and there's three things that I really don't like: victimhood, entitlement, or apathy. Because I think we're all personally accountable for our happiness, success, and fulfillment in life, regardless of what's happened to us or the stories that we tell. And for someone to say, oh, I deserve that, or, I deserve to do this. Well, have you done the work to earn that? I always try to change. Even when one of my friends, I celebrate my friends when they win or succeed or have something happy or award in their life. I never say you deserve that. I always say you earned that, my friend. You earned that happen. You earned that. You did the work. You leaned in to be a better father, or you leaned in to be a better husband, or you did the work to earn that award to be, Mr. Whatever or Mrs. Whatever. So yeah, that's another word. So I could go on, but those are the ones. And can't. I don't think I like the word can't very much. Can't's just to say a word you won't. Like, I can't do that. No, you won't do that. So you got to watch that word as well. And so those are some of the few that come off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's funny because it's all those words I feel like deal with like ownership of your own actions. And it's essentially kind of, busy, can't, should. Those are all deferring to some externality that's controlling you, right? It's not this internal ability to have action. And it's funny you say that because I hate busy too. And one of my biggest pet peeves is someone saying they're too busy to do something, because the busiest people I have ever met in my life do the most. And it is not a negotiation with me of whether that's true or false. The busiest people I've ever met do the most. And look, there is a response to that. It's no, I won't do it. It's not I'm too busy. It's I don't want to. And it doesn't have to be that mean, right? It could just be like, that isn't serving me right now. I don't have the time in my schedule to prioritize that ask or that request. It's just, I can do something that might not be as time consuming, or can I do this for you instead? But it's never, I'm too busy. It's just, that's not a priority. I can't do that. I can't fit into my schedule. But busy is not the right word for it, which gets me to the idea of time blocking. You read about time blocking as well. Like, how do you, as a busy individual with a company right now doing legendary coaching and writing a book, I mean, how do you manage your time to get the most out of your day?
The biggest time blocking hack I can get anyone is what you just said, is saying no. It's not that you're being mean. You're doing it for them and for you when you say no. And I read in a great book, I think it was The One Thing, that said, Keller, I think he said, one no is worth 1,000 yeses. And the problem is we get caught in people pleasing and try to serve everyone, which ultimately doesn't serve ourselves, our families, our communities, or our businesses. And so the best time blocking hack you can do is say no. And especially when it comes to your time, because time is a depreciating asset and it's one of our most important assets. So saying no. And so what we concentrate, I'm not going to tell you we're always successful at this, but I have become really good lately at avoiding all of the distractions. I have email off. I have my social media off. Even when it looks like I'm on social media, that's a member of my team on social media. And I concentrate on the three biggest things that I need to do. Is it creating content? That's one of my priorities. I have three priorities, and I want to spend the majority of my day on those priorities. And I surround myself with people who have other priorities who are much better at those priorities than me. Am I creating content? Am I out there building the brand / building our exposure, podcasting, networking, calling friends, talking to people, shaking hands and kissing babies? And the final thing is, am I serving my people and my clients? Am I showing up for them to be the best for them? If it doesn't fall in those three buckets, I limit it. I've limited email down to maybe once, twice a day. Social media, maybe once a day. And that's only to respond to folks. It's not for me to post. It's to respond to a couple of folks. And I'll probably eventually eliminate that. But we've gotten very good at only having three. And by the way, there's some data on this. And I just read this in a book called Peak Performance. Epic book, by the way. Absolute epic book. Peak Performance. It's one of the few books I read and then read it again. I literally read it twice in a row. But the data there is, if you're multitasking, you're 40% less productive than if you don't multitask. And so I've got a huge speaking presentation next Thursday, and it is the primary thing I'm focusing on. So the rest of my calendar is blocked with those things. But the creation of that content and the practicing of that content, because it's all new content. We're doing a whole series on pro versus amateur, a whole leadership thing. And it's very specific to this particular speaking engagement. But when I'm not working on the three things, I'm only working on that. And I'm not doing much else other than that. And so for me, it's about getting laser focused. And by the way, only 1 out of 100 people can actually multitask successfully. And so you're probably not in the 99%, but we're all guilty of it. Because remember, we live in a casino. We've got our phones, our social media, our email, our text. Hell, some people probably have a TV on in the background. Then you got people around you, and it's all one big distraction. So for me, in order to serve our employees, our community, our mastermind members, our coaching clients, and everything in between, the people are going to come to retreats, it's got to fall in those buckets, or I simply do not do it. And we time block for those buckets. I'm not always successful at following that time block because things happen during the day, but the majority of the time we do follow that.
So one of the biggest things for me, especially when you're trying to really help others within your network in saying no, is that there is like this sense of guilt that comes with saying no, because you want to help, right? Like you want to do things, you want to be out there for people. I mean, how do you deal? And maybe you don't have that same sense of guilt. Do you have it? And how do you deal with it if you do?
I can't say whether I do or don't. I think it's a one-by-one individual basis. I work at discerning really quickly, is this human being a net giver or a net taker?
Mm.
And so I've learned recently through one of my best friends, Chris Tuff, that let's not use the networking terminology anymore. Let's connect. And let's connect. Let's find a middle ground of what you love, what you like to do, what your dreams are. And so when I go into a networking connection, I want to know what they're excited about, what they're working on. And honestly, I want to know whether I can help them or not. But we've got to figure out whether they're net givers or net takers, and whether they're ask holes. That's ASK holes. Are they just going to ask for you, ask for connections? Because it needs to be a quid pro quo. It needs to be about net giving, and it needs to make us both better or make us both happy. And so I've gotten really discerning on that. Luckily, and this has taken time, is I've developed such a network that the majority, not all, are net givers. And there's certain people who call and refer people to me, and I'll take that call, that meeting, that coffee, no matter what, because I trust them that much, and they have my best interest, and vice versa. They would not waste my time. But there's people who run through the cracks every now and then, and they get through. But for me, saying no is not mean to them; it's for them. If someone asks me to do something that I don't want to do, or I don't have the ability to do it or the time to do it, A, I'm going to resent it. B, it's going to be crappy work. And C, it's not going to help them. And if you feel guilty about it, I don't necessarily do this because I just don't have time to explain the why to everybody, and not everybody will get it.
Yeah.
But if you truly feel guilty about somebody that you love and care about, tell them why. Here's what I've got. Here's where I'm going. I've got to stay laser focused here. And if I do that, A, I won't do it good. B, I'm not good at it. It won't help you. And C, it takes away from all the things I'm trying to accomplish. So, and if you really feel guilty, let me introduce you to this person. Maybe they have the time and energy. And so give them the why if you feel an overwhelming sense of guilt. But I would also ask, are you struggling with people pleasing? Are you struggling with lack of boundaries? And are you really putting credence in what other people think? Because the truth is other people are self-serving. Even the two men on this call, what do we say? We're not. We're lying. We're very self-serving. That doesn't mean we're not trying to be net givers, or I hear the word try. That doesn't mean we're not working at being net givers and being, making impact and significance in the world, but we have to serve ourselves so that we can serve others. So at the end of the day, if they're net takers, you're doing them a favor and yourself a favor by saying no. But if you truly care about them, just give them the reason why.
Yeah. Which brings me to this idea of the inner circle that you wrote about. And I love that you are trying to eliminate this term network and use connect. And the reason I think that's a cool idea is that when I think about a network, you almost think of like this network of computers, right? The internet, or it almost seems very impersonal. It's like, this is touching this is touching this. There's this web, and we're all kind of interconnected through, these machines, right? But connect is personal. And it really gets to like maybe the heart and soul of the individual you're trying to meet with. And I haven't struggled with an inner circle. I feel like I've got a nice group of friends that does support each other, but I've always found it very difficult to determine who should be in my inner circle, who is not necessarily serving me in a way that is going to advance my life. I mean, tell me about how we should be thinking about who we're putting in our inner circle, where we should connect with people that are like-minded to bring into our inner circle, and just kind of how to cultivate that inner circle to be the best we could have it.
So my first two qualifications to be in my inner circle, and this can change. And by the way, people come in and out of your inner circle all the time, and that's okay. People go in different directions in life. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means they're going in a different direction from you. So don't feel bad for spending less time with someone. But here's the two qualifications that I have right now. Feel free to take this or add to it. Is, do they make me happy? Or, that's a big or.
Okay.
Do they make me better? A lot of the people that make me better certainly don't make me happy, because they're kicking me in the head a lot of times and making me look at my blind spots and holding me accountable. So it doesn't necessarily mean they make me happy a lot of the times. But if there's friends all along my social scale, and if we start doing all this, well, where they are in life, I've gotten way past that. I just want, there's guys that I grew up with that absolutely just make me happy. They're very simple humans who live simple lives, and I almost like am envious and jealous of them and their families sometimes. But when I'm around them, I laugh, I smile, I giggle. There's no pretenses. That person, and I'll just speak. His name's Ryan, man. I would walk through a wall for that man. And then, or do they make you better? And so those are the two qualifications that I have. And they got to answer one of the two. Yes. If they don't, fire them gracefully over time by just not going and hanging out with them, because life is too preciously short. That doesn't mean they can't come back in either if they start doing the work or working on themselves. Now, here's the truth is there's two ways to connect with people. To me, the most important one, and it's going to sound like the hardest one, is working on your inner game, working on that heart muscle, that mind muscle, and that spirit muscle every day, because you'll get clear of who you are, where you're going, and who's coming with you. You'll get super clear on that. You start meditating and doing gratitude journals and reading daily passages that make you better, whatever your thing is. Like every day I read a passage from Tao. Every day I read the Daily Stoic. Every day I read a passage from a Christian book, just to get all these different perspectives. But once you get to know, you do that inner game, not only do you vibrate differently, and that's a weird thing to say, you truly think about this. Think about that family member that when they walk in the room, the whole room lifts up, man. That's vibration. And then you've got people you work with or in your family, they walk in and you feel like every ounce of air has just been sucked out of your body. That's negative vibration. When you do that inner game, you start vibrating differently. And so when you're you could be in a grocery line, at a restaurant, at a ball game, or running, you'll feel them and you'll strike up a conversation. That's one way. The second way is connecting with people who have mutual interest with you: running, exercise, art, yoga, whatever, business, entrepreneurship, whatever your idiosyncrasy. I promise you, even it could be like making 2-inch dolls. There's probably 1 million people that make 2-inch dolls. But if you start working on your inner game, and then you go find your tribe of people who enjoy doing the same thing you do, you'll find that in that tribe, that's people who are working on themselves and who have the same energy, who make you happy. That's how I would do it. Be mindful of like the Chamber of Commerce type networking and other type of networking, because not everybody listens to podcasts like this. Not everybody's, it's not that they're bad people.
Yeah.
They're just looking to get ahead. So when they're looking at you and they're looking over your shoulder because your title or what you do doesn't benefit them, walk away. Do them and you a favor. Walk away. Because they're not present with you, they don't care about you, and they're just trying to find the person with the highest status in the room to hopefully get their attention. It's not that they're bad people. Be very, very mindful of that, and be very mindful that you don't do that. And so always go with net giving, inner game, find your tribe, and always ask how you can serve, but only ask if you want to serve that person and you can serve that person. But you need to be a net giver. And by the way, my friend also talks about currencies, and I'll stop talking, but this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I don't care if you're just starting out in life or just graduated high school or college, or you're Warren Buffett. Everybody has a currency. It could be a smile. It could be your humor. It could be a technical skill. It could be your knack for listening and holding space. It could be it could be 1,000 different things. But everybody has a currency. So there's something that you have in you that you can give to somebody else. And it could just be holding space or a smile or a cup of coffee or a walk. I mean, there's a lot of things you can give, and think out of the box too. Maybe if you're just getting started, maybe you can just go help them make their life easier, right? Hey, I'm just going to grab your coffee. I'm going to go drive your car. I'm going to walk your dog, but I'm going to listen and get better from you. But I am going to serve you, and I'm going to sit here and you're going to make me do it. So there's a currency that you have. So don't ever think that you're not good enough to get in a room with someone who is. They're just looking for net giving. They're looking for serving. They're looking for either you to make them happy or make them better or make their life easier. So just everybody has a currency as well. And so I wanted to include that in there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you have a great experience, obviously, in your career with money, with finance, as you were in a financial firm, and you wrote a chapter about money. And I love the idea of bringing a relationship with money into how you live your life, because it is a big part of your life. And I think it's an important part for people who want to achieve things at a massive scale. And in the chapter about money, you spoke about billionaires being guarded. And it was a great lesson on, I think, how we should approach our relationship with others. So it kind of dovetails both of these conversations we're having. But why should we, like a billionaire, be guarded?
Well, I mean, again, the Breedlove family has two mantras: protect and defend this fort, guarded, and we show up. I mean, I didn't show up to a celebrity's party, as we talked about offline, big celebrity in town, because I had committed to going to the mountains with a friend and a lawyer, a friend of mine. And I said, we show up. I'm not going to cancel because this is a quote, a bigger party. I'm going to honor my commitment. So let's go back to your question. We have to protect and defend this fort. Unfortunately, because of our media, our news, we're inundated with negativity, and which can cause us to lose hope, which can cause us to make decisions that aren't the best for ourselves or society, that can cause us to get angry and to be judgmental and to be cynical. And it's not that humans are bad people. Persons, all of us, are actually beautiful humans. People in mass are a disaster. I mean, they're just a disaster because we get in the mob mentality, we get in the tribal mentality. We want to be a part of the tribe. We want to be seen, heard, loved, and valued. And sometimes we'll do things. So if you don't protect and defend your fort, your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, but also your financial health, it's not if somebody's going to take from you, it's when. And it's not that people are bad. They're just net takers, and they're self-serving, and they want to be Instagram famous. They want to be a billionaire. And we've got to stop using that freaking word. I'm over it. It's like saying we're all going to be LeBron James. Well, we can work our butts off to be LeBron James, but maybe you play in the C League, right? And that's A-okay as long as the ball makes you happy. Billionaires is a 0.0001%. And people are, the problem is people are saying they're billionaires and they're not even close. That's a whole different discussion. But getting back to your point, protecting and defending this fort, because think about if you actually are a billionaire. Think about if you're Warren Buffett. How many calls a day do you think he gets to speak, to shed wisdom, to take? People just want to take from him. He's an old man. Granted, he's a very rich old man. But he's got limited time, man. And he probably wants to live his life with the people he wants to live it with and do the things he wants to do. Respect that. Respect people's time. Respect your time. And people aren't going to respect your time and your boundaries unless you do. And so whether it's our financial house, our time house, and there's a lot of getting into relationships. There's a lot of unhealthy people out there who want to pain likes pain. Yeah. And people want to sabotage your happiness, your relationship. And it's not, again, they're just unconscious and in pain because everything that's inundating them in their life is negativity. That's why guys like you and I exist, is to say, hey, you're not what the news says you are. You don't have to be envy and jealous of these social media. Just do you and do you well. And I promise you, if you do just a little work, you'll get there. So I hope that answered your question, but you must protect and defend your fort.
Yes. You pose a great hypothetical when you're talking about money in the book. And you said, if we took all the money in the world, every currency, every type of fiat, whatever it is, we divided it up evenly between everyone in the world, within 5 years, 95% of all the money would still go to 5% of the population. And I truly believe that this is absolutely the case for exactly the reasons you're talking about. But I'm curious, because you do understand how money works. How can the 5%, how can the 95% of people that are going to lose all their money to the 5% think and act like the 5% of people that will accumulate wealth?
Great question. And by the way, I believe that with every DNA particle of I'm a student of history, I'm a student of economics, and I'm a student of socio-political, whether it's communism, socialism, capitalism, or everything in between, totalitarianism, whatever it might be. Great question. And I do believe that. I don't know if it would be 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but it would be
Right.
a short amount of time. Just look at what happens. And so how do you act like these people? First of all, money is two things. Remember, money is just energy. It's just a flow. It's an exchange of value for something that you have. It's really that simple. It's just a tool. It's not for certain people. We've created the damn thing, for God's sakes. We've created money and we've created the economy. People talk about the economy like it's some divine God. We created it, man. And so, so getting back to it, here's the thing about money is, again, you've got to participate in your own rescue. You've got to learn money. It is simply a skill. And how do you get confident in money? Doing the reps. You've got to start either taking a class or reading the books. If you're really crappy at money, I'm going to give you the simplest book in the entire world. Even if you're not religious, ignore the religious stuff because it's got a lot of religion in it. Just if that's not your thing, but the message is pure. It's Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. From saving to getting out of debt to understanding basic investing to understanding leasing versus buying a car, why buying a house is important, why not renting is important, all of the basics and mechanics of money. And we have failed as a capitalistic society at teaching money, basic finance, understanding basic cash flow, understanding basic investing and savings. And so you've got to learn the tools. And here's what happens when you learn that. And by the way, I'm going to take it a step further. If you're an entrepreneur and don't have a basic understanding of accounting, you will fail. So you've got to get it's not for somebody else to understand. You've got to understand it. You've got to navigate the field that you're playing in. Taxes, profit and loss, balance sheets, cash flows. I'll stop talking because that can get a little complicated for some folks. But getting back to the basics of money is you've got to participate in your own rescue and you've got to learn the skills and do it in conjunction with family members or friends. Chances are, if you're poor, you're around a lot of poor people. And I'm not being mean. If you hang out with 5 drunks, you're going to become drunk. You hang out with 5 poor people, you're going to be poor. It's just the life. Doesn't mean you can't get out. Like all of you can't get out. Do it with friends. Start making it a game. Yeah. Hold each other accountable, but learn basic. And once you have the basics, you can get technical. You can go and play the games that the big boys play, but it's all about learning it. And when you turn on these business networks and these money networks on TV, or you read articles from the Wall Street Journal and you don't understand them, they're written just for that. They want you to think you're not supposed to play in that game, which is complete BS. If those people, and I know a lot of them can play that game, my Labrador can play that game. And so it's not that they're smarter. It's just they've learned all these technical skills and the hustle. But you got to start basic and then start building it. Do you want to get into real estate? Do you want to get into stock investing? Do you want to get into some sexier stuff like Forex or Bitcoin? But you got to learn the basics. You got to learn to protect and defend the financial fork, get out of debt, get some savings, get some investing, get some basic tools and understand the tools. That's the key, is understanding and applying them. So that's number one. The number two is you gotta, and this is the hardest one, is you've got to rewire that you are worthy enough and good enough for money. You've got to believe that money is not for this rich person out there, or this person got lucky. Maybe they did get the only people who really got lucky, and I'm just going to be very clear because I represent a lot of these people, quote, lucky money-wise, are the people who were born with legacy wealth. 85% of those people are an absolute disaster in life. So don't look over there because they're driving a Ferrari. It won't be long till that Ferrari crashes, whether that's metaphorically or real. So don't think that just because they've got a bigger house, money does not equal happiness. If you're a miserable person with a lot of money, it just magnifies your miserableness. If you're a person of impact and goodness and love and giving, it'll magnify your impact, love, goodness, and giving. But you've got to believe you are worthy of money, that it's not some mythical unicorn out there only for the lucky. It's BS. Most people weren't born with money, 90-something%. They just went out there and learned it and worked their butts off to go get it, but also believe they can go get it. You've got to believe you can make money. And that comes back with that inner game, that rewiring. If you don't believe that you're worthy enough of a lot of money, that's been told to you. That's a story that you're telling yourself. That's a story that was told to you that now you're believing. We got to unwire that, learn the basic tools. You got to learn the skills. You can't go out and play basketball if you can't dribble, but you got to learn how to dribble. But then you got to start rewiring and undo that story, either your parents or society or some not nice person or that, and says, hey, you're not enough. You're not worthy of this. So it's a two-headed monster. And, be careful of what you wish for. Because too much money leads to no freedom. And what I mean by true freedom is, people that we look up to, the great business people, the great movie stars, the artists, the musicians, and the athletes, they can't go anywhere without people harassing them. There's no freedom in that.
And they're responsible for others too, right? Like when you have a business like that and you're bringing money in, then you have that responsibility to continue to bring that same amount of money in or scale more, right? Yep. Yeah, it's a burden. It's a great way to put it.
Profit and employment burden, which is a whole different podcast. But anyone in this world can go out and make some money. And by the way, anyone can get to a level of money, and it's not a lot, where you're safety, you can take vacation, you can have a good house, you can eat and enjoy life. It's not a significant amount of money. The problem is when we get there, we always want more, and yours truly is guilty as charged.
Yes. So Tommy, you wrote essentially a playbook to become legendary. And I think that there's a lot of great strategies within this playbook that people need to apply in their life. And it's phenomenal advice. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I've ever received? Oh my God. That's maybe the best question I've had in a long, long time. The worst advice I ever received. I don't know if it was advice. What was the worst advice I ever received? Well, you've stumped me. Give me a second. Worst advice I've ever received. It had to be somewhere in my mergers and acquisitions, public accounting, and financial, because I got a lot of bad advice. Because it was all about power, status, and winning, but winning at the expense of everyone else. I think as a young tot, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, I don't know if it was advice, a lifestyle, or opinions. There's a difference between advice. I guess advice is opinions, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in a pretty humble part of the world, and there was a lot of racial division. A lot. It's gotten a trillion times better, no matter what the news is telling you. Trust me, the way I grew up 47 years ago, it was almost a borderline war in certain parts of the town. I was told that if people look like this or talk like this, that they were different and less than, and not us. And then I started playing basketball, and I'm going to school and becoming friends. I'm like, yes, that's true, because they're better than us, because they don't say things like that. And I'm very sensitive to this issue because of the way I was raised and some things that happened to me as a young man. And so for me, trusting my heart and gut and not listening to family members or certain members of society tell me that this person is less than me or that we're better than them. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I really looked up to some of the families that looked different than me, and they became some of my best friends. And so it was about trusting my heart and even taking criticism from certain members of that community and family. But that was probably the worst opinion/advice. These people are just going to do this to you and that to you. And this is just a fear-based, insecurity, ignorant thing to say. And that's how, when I was especially a young puppy, that I was taught. And when I started getting older and thinking for myself, I was like, all of that is nonsense. Because that fine person that you're talking about is a whole lot better than me in a whole lot of ways. So I'll just leave it at that. Great question, though, by the way. Great question.
What are 3 non-negotiables in your life?
The relationship with my wife. I will do everything in my power to protect and defend the fort, to love her, It's a non-negotiable for me. Bullying is a non-negotiable for me. I was horrifically bullied as a kid in every possible way. So, and bullying can come in many forms, and we've got to be careful that when we're trying to make socially right, wrongs right, that we don't become the bullies that we hate. So, bullying is a complete non-negotiable for me, and I'll put these three categories: victimhood, apathy, and entitlement are non-negotiables for me. This is the things I fight against. With personal accountability, with hope, with goodness, with tactics, and with rewiring. So I would say the relationship with my wife, because she loved me when no one else could. And brother, when I tell you she stood next to me when no one else would, that I'll never forgive that. And to the dying breath, I will honor that. Second is bullying from someone who is horrifically abused, and see how it all plays out and what's happening in this world right now. Even in the name of righteousness, we're bullying.
Yeah.
I'm an anti-bully guy, and the last thing I'm fighting against is the news telling us we're victims, the news telling us we're entitled, the news telling us to not care, or politicians saying, you don't have to do anything, I've got you. I'm fighting against that, because let's participate in our own rescues. Let's talk to our neighbors, be open-minded, lean in, get better, and we will make society better, not them. And so those are the three things. Those are my non-negotiables.
I love it. I love it. Well, I've got three final questions that I always ask everybody, but Tommy, I love your mentality. I love what you're doing. I think there's so many great nuggets in this book, Legendary. How can people get a hold of you, get some coaching, get a copy of the book?
Yeah, the book, I'm so thankful it's become a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. I'm super grateful for that, because now what that means is you can get it anywhere. It's an Audible, it's an electronic, hardback, softcover. I won't say a bookstore, your favorite bookstore, go get it there.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. So I'm really thankful for that. If you're on Instagram, follow us at Tommy Breedlove. We are always putting life tips, money tips. We put out light and love. You're never gonna see the darkness. And we really do care down to the deepest parts of our soul. And I say us because it's a community. It's not just me. Follow us at Tommy Breedlove. But if you're interested in a mastermind, a retreat, some coaching, or some of our digital products, if you're lacking purpose, we have some good stuff out there. Go to TommyBreedlove.com, and there's a lot of cool stuff there. Reach out to us at info@TommyBreedlove.com. Tell us what you think. But if you follow us on social, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, I pretty much stay off of Twitter. I think it's deadly. But LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, we're always putting out great stuff there and opportunities. But we'd love to have you at a retreat, building and living a legendary life. We'd love to have you as part of our coaching programs, or we just actually like to have a connected relationship with you. And I hope some of the stuff we said today resonated, man.
Yeah, so all of those links will be in the show notes. So final three questions here. What's the most impactful book you've ever read?
Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I've read it 5 times, and I worked it.